Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Welcome to Mondays with Myrt, where we talk about anything and everything that's come across our Genia desks in the last week since last we met. And I've got a group of panelists, and we are going to have a very interesting discussion today. Part of it is involving you who are participants in the audience. Let's see, we've got, hello. I love your smile, darling. Wonderful. Joyce is here. Heat advisory. Take it easy, dear. Deneen is there in San Mateo. Yeah, we aren't having that kind of warm weather. In fact, I cannot see the car for the fog today. So, and the island across the way, can't even see it. It's just all misty and mysterious. All righty. Randy is here and there on the YouTube side from Chula Vista, cloudy and 68. Yeah, we're cloudy. Well, I don't know. We're misty. Yeah. Thank you, Betty Lou, for Sherry says, for reminding us to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much, because since we started, when was that? In March? I can't remember. February or March? We now have 1,000 subscribers on this new YouTube channel. So I'm really honored that you all spend time here and come visit with us. In fact, today it's really important that you participate. Okay. And Sherry, she's from Iowa. That is, you saw your first red leaf. She was just in the green room with us. And Sherry, you can tell by that little crescent wrench, is our moderator over on the other side. Keep things running smoothly over there. Let's see. Betty Lou in the middle of Arkansas. I can remember being in like second grade, and we had to memorize the states of the United States. And I'm like, if we have Kansas, why isn't that our Kansas? And my teacher said, no, it's Arkansas. And I'm like, no, I've been argumentative for a number of my years, apparently. Anyway, it's all good. So let me introduce the panelists to you today. So we have Frank from Germany, our guy in Germany. Hi. And you and Ellen did something interesting this past week. Ellen sent you a query. Ellen, tell us about that just real briefly, a sentence or two.
I have a family story that my great-grandmother, when she came to great-great-grandmother, when she came to Canada, she came from maybe some wealth and didn't know how to keep house. And I was trying to figure out with Frank's help. Is that true?
And Frank, you are on completely different time zones.
Yep.
And so tell me, what time did you receive this, and were you able to solve her query?
I think it was just within 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night. Insomnia hit me really hard at night. So I worked as quickly as I could with that. And to my surprise, I could deliver it in just 2 or 3 hours. It really was just putting puzzle pieces together.
So apparently, Ellen wrote a very effective query in communicating with you about this question. We'll get back to that subject of writing effective queries in just a little bit. Thank you. So Ellen's our gal in Canada, and Hillary is our gal in Wales. Hillary, thanks for being co-host this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And Liv, our gal in Norway, who is finally back home in Norway in her very own living room. Hi, Liv.
Hi.
And
nice
of course, you're Norwegian, but today you're going to talk with us about Sweden. So yeah, their history is so intertwined. I hear you. Okay, so old Myrt has cooked up an interesting, I hope interesting to you, topic today for discussion. And it has to do with exactly what Ellen did, composing a query and getting the word out, in this case, directly to Frank. But many of us join online groups, like a Facebook group on Norway. And have you noticed that some people have a little difficulty writing or composing an effective query? That's what I want to talk about today. Actually, writing an effective query. And this is an audience participation thing. I would like you to take it from this stance. I would like you to type in an ineffective query. And we're going to talk about elements of a good query by taking the negative approach. How's that for today? Ellen, let's have you talk to me about the things that you put in your question to Frank. And that will give people a chance to type in a problematic query. Like mine would be, give me everything you've got on the Smith family. That's ridiculous query. Go ahead, Ellen.
Basically, what I gave him a review of the family story, and I gave him a link to my great grandmother's profile on WikiTree. So he knew who I was talking about, and that's basically what I did. I count on Frank because I don't speak or write German, and I knew that he could help me, and he's helped me before, so I'm very thankful.
It's good to be a panelist and work together on things because we get by with a little help from our friends, don't we?
Yeah, and I met Frank through WikiTree, so.
So you knew him before Mondays with Myrt.
Right.
Cool. All right. Attendees, I need you to type. Yes, Betty Lou says we have an international panel today. And Lori is here. Hi. I was just thinking about you yesterday and that we need to have dinner in Tempe, Arizona. Maybe next summer would be good. But I digress. Attendees, on the YouTube side, would you please type in what you should not include so that you would be composing an ineffective query? Ellen gave us a clue. Ellen said she gave the link to the WikiTree profile for her great. Is it one great or two greats? Grandmother. Two. Yeah. Please type in what you should not include. Okay. And part of why we want to write a query is to answer that question about wealth. Oh, good. Thank you, Marion. Marion said she would not include a biography. That would be an ineffective query had Ellen not given that link to WikiTree where there's all kinds of dates and event dates, birth and marriage and death, etc. Let's see. A complete history of the person. Okay. And information about living people. Yeah, one thing we're not really doing in the world of genealogy is studying living people. Now, DNA is a different subject because that may get us back to the most recent common ancestor. Information about living people. Randy, jump in here with this. You're right. Without any dates or places, that Smith family is not getting narrowed down. Which Smiths are we talking about? Yeah, and Joyce agrees with you, not putting in a time period. So we've got to have a couple of identifying bits of information. Years ago we did a yeah, and there's our Hillary gal. No location. Years ago, cousin Russ and I did a wacky Wednesday about composing effective queries, and WikiTree hadn't been invented yet. And WikiTree, or any online tree or online presentation of the information about your ancestor, is a good thing to include as a link, so that in this case, Frank could see the whole picture. Frank, let's see. Oh, wait, here's a good one. Layla says, I'm looking for an Ole Olsen in Norway, and he's changed his name to Olson, not Sin, in the US. Yeah, that's like the Smith. Yeah. Putting in too much family lore. I get that. Although she was trying to determine something that was verifiable. Let me ask you, Frank, on that point of the family lore, that she had come from a well-to-do family and therefore she didn't know how to cook or clean. Were you able to prove or disprove that?
It's really kind of easy when you find the marriage documents, especially the civil one, because even in the beginning, even in 1874, when they began to write it down, they often list the occupation of the parents. So in Ellen's case, for the ancestor in question, her parents was listed as the day laborer.
Hmm.
So so if the family law says that someone is from a wealthy family or even a royal family, that's not quite fitting well together.
I hear you. Yeah. So I'm sure you were wondering now, Ellen, why your family has this family story. But in this case, because of the occupation, were you surprised with the results of Frank's research?
I wasn't so surprised about her parents because I didn't really know anything about them. But I wondered because her husband was a candy maker or a baker. That, I didn't know whether that was something that could be considered wealthy and have servants. I don't know. I doubt it.
I kind of doubt it. My Johann Conrad Weiser, and his son Conrad Weiser from Germany to upstate New York. It was a very tiny village in
But
Germany.
usually there's a grain of truth to the story. So I was just wondering where it came from.
Yeah.
Usually there's something, but doesn't seem to be.
Well,
Wishful thinking.
So maybe that married couple had wealth later in their years.
Yep.
And a disgruntled sister-in-law said, "Oh, she's
Didn't
a
even know how to
lazy
keep
woman,
house.
jealous. I mean, who knows?"
Maybe she just was a bad housekeeper, and that was her excuse.
I don't know. So, day laborers in Norway or Sweden, that translates to a certain income level, doesn't it, Leave? You're muted, dear.
Yeah, yes, of course it does. But I had an interesting example, a baker who went to Denmark in the 1850s to get his education. And so I had to ask an expert, and he told me. And these things you can never find out. You have to ask an expert. And he said that education in the Oslo area, in 3 different places, was not open for baking. So he could go to Bergen, which is across the mountains, and a strenuous trip at that time. So we went to Copenhagen instead. So
It was easier and interest. It's very easy. Yeah.
yeah, and it also told something about his class, that he not everybody would be able to do that.
And the time period was,
Around 1850.
oh yeah, that's interesting. So I guess the experience I had with a family of multiple generations of a baker in Germany, in Groß Aschbach, Württemberg. Yeah, I didn't quite say it correctly, but anyway, even now, if you go there, it's a tiny little place. There's no big castle like the castles on the Rhine. And I can tell you that the last 2 generations were do you call it a Bürgermeister, like the mayor of the town? Is that correct, Frank?
Yes, it's
Yeah. So, but it wasn't that big of a town, and it still isn't that big of a town. In fact, I inquired, was there destruction? And so what I was looking at in 1995 was after World War II, had there been a great deal of destruction? No, just not for that particular area. So it's good to have these kinds of discussions, because I would have jumped to the conclusion that a baker came from a family that wasn't wealthy, came from a very small town. That was it. And Lieb has this other example. So this is why we need to have these discussions to find out what's going on.
But it really comes down to the time period. For example, your Weisers, especially the bakers, were once a little bit more wealthy than the normal people, because they had a guild crest. The
A
first
guild?
family crest that
Oh,
we
yeah,
know of the
family crest.
Weisers is the crest that they had at the bakers.
Okay, and remember that crests in Germany are different from family crests or heraldry over in England. The rules were different, right? So I just learned something, that wasn't such a lowly thing. I don't know. It's not easy to knead the bread and put it in the hot oven and do all that. So I'm not thinking of that as a glorious occupation.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you have a guild behind you.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. All right, we got some comments from the community. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, we're happy that you're here too, Bev. Thank you. Right up from Victoria. Boy, do I love your island. It's beautiful there. Deneen says, my grandmother did not know how to cook because because her well-off family presumed the girls would always have cooks. Grandpa taught her, and she was a great cook. Interesting. Okay. And then Joyce says, it shows how important knowing the social history of where you are searching is important. Okay. So let me now ask those of you who are attending to, as you've typed into comments, type a sample query. But let's talk about what you might put in place there. Okay, let me pull up my PowerPoint just because it's a better looking slide than Microsoft Word. I can get there. Okay. Scoot this over and bring it over to the right screen to share. Okay. So we're going to look at this, and I'll make it full screen. And, oh, remember Father Ivan and the birth records of, yeah. All right, so here we are, we're writing effective queries. So far, what have we come up with, panelists? What have they told us? And I will make a text box.
Names and dates.
Okay. Okay, and I better change the text color. Okay, thank you, Ellen, for that. Okay, what else would be considered important?
Places,
The place, yeah.
locations.
I put the S in parentheses because sometimes it makes a difference. Like my maiden name is Player, Player, and I know that our players originated in England in a certain place, and that some of them went, not mine, went to South Carolina and continued there quite strongly, as opposed to mine that went to Utah because they joined the Mormon church in England and came over in late 1830s, early 1840s, depending. And they went to Nauvoo, Illinois, and up through New Orleans and out to Utah. So sometimes you have to say, make that distinction. They're not the South Carolina group, and we haven't yet found out where we connect back in England. We just know that that's a big enclave of players, and ours are not the South Carolina ones. So you may have to make that distinction in your query. Let's see what people are saying. Okay. Okay. So Randy, jump in here. You've got some suggestions for further research for Ellen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you ask? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You made a couple of suggestions for research for Ellen.
Well, no, that's a sample query that I would ask.
Oh,
if I knew nothing, and I didn't know about the Family Search Wiki.
Oh, okay.
I have that specific problem.
Okay, and
the next query would be: are there Fletcher families in Prince Edward County in that time period?
Right.
And where can I find information?
All right. Let's take that query and see if we can actually answer it ourselves. Come on, computer. Okay, I've got a new tab because sometimes we can answer this ourselves. Are there probate and deeds for Prince Edward County, Ontario? And we maybe want to put the time period 1790 to 1820. Now I'm just doing an ordinary Google search. Let's see what we get. Okay, let me zoom in. By the way, StreamYard just updated so that these screenshots, these shared screens are now totally, what am I trying to say? They're a clearer level. Sheesh.
Full HD.
Yes, full HD, not 720, but the 1080. Okay. So apparently there is a microfilm loan service from the county, surrogate, probably court, this Atticus Forms is just advertising. So at the top where they've got these little green clip check mark things, those are sponsored. Let's see what else we get. Not a whole lot, do we? Not a whole lot.
Pat, click on the did you mean thing up at the top, because you misspelled deed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. Other
Sorry.
people are going to make that mistake too. So here we are, land records for Prince Edward County. At Family Search, the time period's slightly off, but it does include most of the years you've requested. It's missing 9 of them. There's that microfilm interloan service. Yeah. And records we don't have. That's an interesting one, isn't it? What we're missing. Okay. So one of the things that can happen with a query like that is, have we done our own due diligence and done even a simple Google search? Now, had a person never heard about Family Search, they'd click and they could still see the catalog, and that this is a microfilm of original records in possession of the same office that is willing to give us, let us borrow microfilm. But let's find out more about this. This is the Registrar of Deeds. Okay, what does this little icon mean?
Restricted.
Yeah, it is digitized this time period, but the little key above it means it's viewable with additional restrictions. So let's click and find out what that's about. Well, they want me to log in, so I shall do it. Oh my gosh, I can see it. Let's be sure that it's,
But you're an LDS church member, right?
yeah.
So I can't see that because I'm not. And so I have to go to the Family Search Center locally or Salt Lake City to see these.
Okay. Or we can
affiliate
arrange a
library?
baptism. We can take care of that next week if you want, Randy. Or you can have me look it up for you. Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes it'll tell you that you can only see it at the Family History or the Family Search Library, as they now call it, the big library in Salt Lake City. Okay. Wow. By the way, if you do need something, I'm very happy to look it up for you.
You don't want to search through 488 images there, and that was one film, you know?
Yeah. Well, but it covered the time period. Let's go back. Let's close this. It covered the time period, the first part of your time period. Oh, but look, volumes A through D. So it's not alphabetical by name. It's by time period. Those are books. So yeah. And I think you can deal with it. All right. I digress. Let's see some more about what we've got. So Bev is suggesting you might consider possible locations. Yes, probably want to put your reasoning behind that. But yes, let's see what we've got. Name variants, especially if it includes a name change. And Betty Lou, aren't you dealing with Catholic records in Italy where they use the old Latin name? And then, but on the tombstone, I've seen this in Minnesota when we looked at my brother-in-law's records. That um, the name that the given name was the Latin form of the name, but what was on the tombstone was different.
Mm.
There's
To slide in with that, also include nicknames,
okay.
because sometimes you find civil records just with the new nickname, but not with the birth name. I have
Yeah.
I have seen that several times, and it tricks me off because no one controlled the passports back then.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. So
Yeah,
we
it's
did have
important.
we did have a question for you from Joyce. When sending a query to Germany, is putting it in English okay, or should it be in German as well, Frank? What would you think?
I also wrote it in the chat before, but to repeat myself, it depends on whom you ask. If you ask just another researcher, you can do either, because most of the German researchers can very well speak English. But if it comes down to a state official, especially large archives, they by law are just allowed to answer to inquirers in the language that the country is speaking. So for German it is German, for Polish it is Polish, and so on.
Wow. So
Which
we would need a little help
so
translate.
so sometimes you can get answers sometimes, because obviously there are nice people as well. But by law, they are just allowed to answer to inquirers in their official languages.
Okay. And Marion says Family Search Wiki, and that's called Research Wiki, has sample letters to send to international record holders. I mean, because basically you're asking for the birth record, the christening, the marriage, the death, the burial, whatever. Um, I'm amazed at how well educated people are in Western Europe because of the multiple languages that they can speak. And I'm particularly happy to hear from you, Frank, the laws that govern the responses. So keep that in mind. So, Randy, you have added Prince Edward County deeds to your to do list. Now, that's a good thing. Every time you run up against a database like that with images, um, yeah, make a list. Sounds good. At least we're not having to order microfilm and wait 6 or 8 weeks to get it. And then, that whole rigmarole. Those of us have been around doing research forever and a day. Remember the microfilm days and how ordering, and then you have to extend it. And it was an expense. And in fact, in some cases where research would take just a short time to look something up on one microfilm, like the index, so then it would refer you to another microfilm. I would just keep a running list. I actually would print them out and write on the printout from that catalog entry what it is I'm looking for. And then after I had about 75 films that I should look at, I wasn't willing to pay, say, $10 a film to order it, I'd say to my dad, it's time to send me to Salt Lake. And it made the trip worth it. But it was a good thing that I'd written on the printout what it is I was looking for, because sometimes it would take me a year or so or two to accumulate that many to solve a various research problems. Okay, so we've got some comments that are going out in the chat about language, etc. And so I think what I'm going to do is open this to the panel to discuss. Oh, yeah, Valerie says, and hi, Val, the good old days. I still have the original receipts for microfilm orders I placed back in early 1989. Yeah, I kept them because I wanted to be sure I created a good citation. All right, so talk to me about these things. Betty Lou is saying she has records in French, and the names are the French version, but if the records are in Italian, then the names are in Italian, like Joseph, Giuseppe, or Julian, Gillian. Yeah. Yeah, Randy, talk to me about Google Translate. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so you could put a query into German, but you want to write a nice introduction too. And using Google Translate, you can translate it English into German and vice versa. So,
and it does a pretty good job. It has. We've used it for years before AI came out, didn't we?
Yeah.
But
Joyce has a better idea. There she is.
Oh my gosh. She contacted a person who runs the Facebook page for the German town where her great grandfather is from. He told me the records are now kept in a different town, and it only took a day to hear from him. That's the advantage of joining a Facebook group. Is you got boots on the ground, up to the minute information on where the records are kept. Sherry has an interesting point of view. She's our gal over there helping on the YouTube side. Place names changed based on the governing group at the time. Frank, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Obviously, counties change a lot, especially by name. For example, before the end of World War II, there was the state of Hessen-Nassau, which is now nowhere to found. If you look into Hessen, you don't find the records. If you look for Nassau, you don't find the records. You have to look in next to Hanover to find the records, which is now part of Niedersachsen. Without local knowledge, you don't know that at all.
Totally get that. Let me take you to Jewish Gen, guys. Let me share my screen here. And we're just talking, these are their research divisions. Right there at the very top, Bohemia and Moravia, now in the Czech Republic, plus, and then they also in that research division include parts of Austria and Vienna. Now, if you weren't really up on the history, you'd be sunk. And then for Belarus, the former Russian Empire of, and I can't say all these names, yeah, right there at the top of their list.
As for the Austria chest, I actually have one example. From a little town of Tarnopol, or Tarnopil nowadays. It's right at the border from the Czech Republic into Austria. It was once at a time German, Polish, Austria, Czech, Polish again, and then Czech. And if you look in the records, you found all of these languages used at the same time. So the names are Polish. The top of the tables are in Polish. They used Latin for what happens and when it happens. But the town names are written in Czech. it's so bizarre to simply transcribe it.
Yeah, I totally get that. That's why part of that is why I picked Jewish Gen, because they cover that area. You know, Russian came this way and Poland and this and that, and then the Germans wanted. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so that was the governing group at the time. So this one that you posted, Frank, good for follow-up research. Note the reference numbers and ask the archives to include side notes or annotations, especially if they cannot send you a photocopy of the record. Now, I want to interject something that happened to me. We were in Missouri at a courthouse, Clinton County, Missouri, and I have a number of marriages and different items that I wanted to have a copy of. And the copy had to be made by the clerk. And Mr. Myrt and I were there, and we were the only people there. And she said, "You'll have to put a slip of paper on the, in front of the page that you want to have copied." And the problem was, yeah, I got the copy. They had to mail it to me. We were the only people there. Nobody was there until about the last 5 minutes of our entire day spent there. She would not she just sat there. She was on her phone, like her cell phone. So she wasn't actually working. I got really frustrated by that. But yeah, she gave me the copy of the marriage record, but I have no idea what volume number or anything. And that's not a good clerk. Luckily, clerks are usually incredible when it comes to helping us find documents and make craft citations. Yeah, that was in the.
What I mean with side notes and annotation is in later years, the civil registers placed stamps and annotation where to find other records of the person in question. For example, I have found a record from one of my relatives where the side annotation was, "This person by law changed the name to a different name, and it was not the first marriage," and so on and so on. A really big stamp formulated with all the reference numbers. And these reference numbers helps enormously when you ask a different archive for the records, because these records are numbered by year. So you simply have to ask them, yeah, hand me over record 187 of year so and so. By that person, I can prove I'm related. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Plus those side notes and annotations. Now, Hillary, you're shaking your head yes. So that must mean you relate to that. Tell me about it.
You probably need to make sure you ask for all the information they have about somebody. I found things in an archive, and on the first page that I found it, which was where I found something from an index, and I went look, and I managed to get them. They brought out the original records for me to look at. On that first page, it then referred to another page, and then that referred to another page. On that second page was the most useful information I found, and the final page wasn't so important, but it's important that you get the whole picture there, and if you don't get all those pages, you don't get the whole picture.
That's incredible. I'm thinking, Leaf, let me ask you, when looking at records at Archive Digital, I've seen something akin to this, where they kept track of things like that. It as little discursive notes on the side. Am I thinking correctly that it that
You're talking about Arkiv Digital, which is the Swedish
Mm-hmm.
me-
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they refer to other places in the same book or in other books. So it's very important with the annotations there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not so
Intriguing.
much for Norway.
Not so much for Norway. Okay. So this is good to get this international perspective here. Okay. Our friend says, I know the National Archives in Norway answer to English and German queries. They really want an English written query than a Google translation to Norwegian, as Google translates not always so good. I totally understand that. And you would concur, I'm assuming?
Yes, yes, I would. But an important thing is when one has queries, one can ask them in Norway, Digitalarkivet, the digital archives. There is a forum there. There's and there you can write it in English because people understand English very well, and you'll get an answer in Norwegian or in English.
Mm-hmm.
But a few questions has popped up after I posted my blog on my visit to Malmö and people having Swedish queries.
Mm-hmm.
And I would advise them, go into Facebook, Digital Archive, some of these places, and ask your question, because you get very, very good help there. You get better help at Digital Archives than you get on Facebook, because people are more qualified on that forum.
Yeah, you as always, you have to consider the source. In my case, that one clerk was not very helpful, but she was the exception to the rule, I'm sure. You brought up your blog post about this conference. So let's talk about that, and we'll kind of transition over to some other interesting topics for today, keeping in mind that when we communicate with that archive or library or church office or post something on Facebook in a surname or locality group, that we need to be succinct and provide enough information in our query to identify this John Smith from that John Smith. Okay, so tell me about this, Liv.
Yeah, this is an important event for us Norwegian, because this is a bigger conference than we have in Norway. And a lot of us, we have both Swedish and Norwegian roots. Some things in genealogy or everyday life is equal, the same in Norway and Sweden, and some things are very different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always a lot to learn. Yeah, I have started with the history to try to explain why some of our forebears have been to Sweden or came from Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
or went the other way. It's of course because of wars. The Nordic War, when the Swedes invaded Norway. But it's also emigration. It's further up. Yeah. Do you want to go to Arkiv Digital?
Mm-hmm.
They are the largest sponsor of the events in Sweden, and
I can tell their booth was huge.
yeah, they have taken color photos of the records, so it makes it much easier to read. So that's the difference between Norway and Sweden. In Norway, the government has paid for the scanning of the records in a much larger degree than they have in Sweden. So, and the Archiv Digital is you have to pay for it, while they also had the Riksarkiv, the National Archive, which is free but does not have as many records.
In Norway.
In Sweden.
Oh, okay. Are the Norwegian records that have been digitized largely in color or the black and white?
I have to think.
Don't know.
I think it's color.
Okay. Color's really helpful if we have scans of census records, because we can determine different colors of ink, or the red pencil, or the, different, every census page gets looked at by a supervisor, by the Census Bureau when they gather statistics, et cetera, and little notations are made. And when it's black and white, you don't get those subtleties. And I think color is, for heaven's sake, since we can do it, let's do it. But I digress. Yeah. So this is a big deal if they're having 16 lectures a day.
Yeah, it is.
And this is annual?
Yes. And it's arranged in different parts of Sweden. So we've been, we travel to a new place every time. So this was a 5-6 hours drive from Oslo to get there. And we have a lot of fun meeting the other Norwegian genealogists, but it's very much fun being there and listening to the lectures.
And it makes for a fun time to travel with a friend and share the hotel expense and travel expense, things along that line. It's all very good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I want to mention one thing that we forgot to talk about when it came with dates, when we're talking about our queries. What is this date? What is that to you in Germany, Frank?
For me in Germany, it would be the 2nd of March, but for you at the US, it's the 3rd of February.
Absolutely. So genealogists should write it 3 Feb 1864. You don't have to abbreviate February. That way we know what the heck we're talking about. We could do a whole study of dates and calendaring, and why did my monitor just decide to go dark? That was interesting. It's okay now. I'm going to put it on the list to discuss calendars, the Gregorian and Julian calendar, and Quakers, and how they mention their dates a lot differently than that. But just considering this in your communication, please use the date like this so it's evident. You're separating the year, and we're not doing 3 February 64. That's ridiculously ambiguous. Hillary, you're shaking your head. Nah, don't do it.
Betty Lou just pointed out exactly that.
Oh.
Please give us 4-digit numbers for the year.
Yeah. Nothing worse than.
Okay, thank you for the mention there. Let's see.
Places not abbreviated to try and give as much information as you can, because some of the abbreviations that get used in one country might be used by somebody else and might mean something completely different.
Sherry, we need to have you. I know you can't appear because of things with your computer. We need to talk about your conversion chart for Quaker Records. So maybe you can send me a text or something with a link, and we'll try to incorporate that into next week's discussion. Okay, what's next on the docket? We shall see.
I think it's me.
It's you.
It's 5 to the hour.
Gosh.
Okay, and that's good. But what I need is 20 after this hour. This
Okay.
new hour. We're good.
Yeah.
Because we conclude at 10:30 my time. Not quite there yet. Okay, we did the query. One name study. Oh, last time we met, we talked about one place study and the conference that's going on this whole month with little mini presentations. You've done something with your Rosling family, this blog post. Talk to me, Hillary, about this.
Well, I belong to the Guild of One Name Studies, and they've just started up a Facebook group to try and encourage people to start blogging a bit more, and particularly about their one name study, but just to get people into blogging. And I haven't blogged on my one name study for quite a long time. And so they're putting up topics for each month. And the one for August, which I only just got into because I published it right on the end of August.
Right at the end.
Yeah, within like almost the last day anyway. So they put the topic was the first person. So I thought, well, what do I know about, and who can I put? This is actually a photograph of my husband's grandmother, who was the first Rosalind that I on Wikitree, and she was also obviously she's the reason why I chose that particular surname, because it was in the family and his family rather than mine. So so all I've done, I did a very short post saying I haven't posted for a while, long overdue, and basically put a link into her on Wikitree, and I've put a link in to my page for my one name study on Wikitree as well, so that you can see how many people we've actually got on Wikitree with that particular surname. There's quite a lot. I'm trying off the top of my head, I can't remember how many we've got at the moment, but there's quite a lot.
So those of you, I mean, we talk about Wikitree a lot. It's a great website for a one world tree where participants are particularly strong on citations, on attaching their thought process documents, the ones they've run across that have caused them to believe this event belongs to this Ida Lavinia,
yeah,
Rosling, married name or maiden name, and Brown. And this is what you did, Ellen, when you were communicating with Frank. You sent the link. Just as Hillary had put the link here, it was easy for me to find it. The connection at Wikitree. Excellent idea. Because then it is possible for you to recreate this or to take the biography and copy and paste that information. And Randy's particularly good at this because he writes a blog post about the person, and then he takes that information, do you not, Randy, and put it on their profile over on Family Search. He's shaking his head yes. Because we don't know which doorway that distant, heretofore unknown cousin is going to come into your family tree and realize that you all are, in fact, cousins. Okay, what's the second one? Oh, here's the Rosling one name study at WikiTree, which is a little bit different from the Guild of One Name Studies. Help me understand this website. Explain this.
This one, if you typed your surname in there and somebody's got a study with that surname, it will show you and it can also show you what they've got on that surname to some extent. Yeah, they've got global marriages. They've got 47 global marriages, 103 marriages that just the members can access. They've got 2 inscriptions. And they've got 8 in their probate index. Some of the records, the ones that are starred, are only accessible if you're a member of the Guild of One Name Studies.
Like the global marriage and the probate index.
Yeah, the top, the ones you can see, the one at the top, that's public, you can access that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are mostly England. Oh, Julie Goucher and I know we have to be cousins. Contributor of many of these.
Either that, or she at some point went and transcribed a lot of information, or has uploaded a lot of information. A lot of these things may have been uploaded by a member of the guild. It may be that they just connect into their one name study. It may be that they have got some connection to it, or they I haven't seen it for a while, but they have had things for members of the guild where somebody's gone to an archive and done going to be doing some research, and they'll take queries from other members to help them with their one name study, and then they will more than likely add those onto one of the indexes and that. So, I mean, Cousin Russ was one of the members of the guild, I believe. Yeah, and I think somebody is certainly or was and possibly still is doing the Worthington one name study, as far as I'm aware. But if you've got an interest in a particular surname, it's always worth looking on there, because that person who's been looking at that one name study may have information about somebody that might help you. So, and there's a lot of information on there about what that person's doing. You know, some of us, even though I've been doing my study for a while, I'm still probably would regard me as being fairly early on stages, because I've not done some of the research that a lot of our members that have been doing it for a long time have done. So
very, very interesting. And we haven't talked about the guild for a long time. Let's see what our comments are. Yeah, I agree, first of all, with Frank. That's a beautiful picture of your Rosling ancestor, your husband. And then John Laws, he's still working his blog, not quite as actively, and he has a Facebook presence. Yeah, wondered about him too.
I haven't seen John for a long time. The last conference I went to, I don't think he was there, but I don't think he was well enough to travel. So
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing this with us and helping us understand what's available when you're just concentrating on one surname. So it's not just the one place study, but the one name study. I can recall that Cousin Russ's communication with the Worthington people showed a division, probably a misattributed parentage scenario back in the 1600s. So the combination of the one name study and then comparing they set up a DNA group for the Worthingtons. He saw how he matched or didn't match, and there are actually a number of people that match him with Worthington, but don't match the initial DNA coordinator for the Worthington. Sherry says she likes the Guild site as even if it is not a formal study, they list other occurrences of the surname, like coffin. Okay. Sounds good. All right. What's next on the docket?
You've got at least a couple of DNA things.
Yeah, Randy, this is part of the Randy Seaver portion of the show. We're going to talk about how you use autosomal DNA ethnicity and DNA match results with your genealogy research. So let me share the screen. Take it away, Randy.
Well, I like to ask questions about genealogy and DNA and other things of artificial intelligence. It's one way to find things out and to also find out how much the AI tools know or have been trained on. Okay. For DNA, they've been trained really well because I know that Blaine Bettinger's book and probably a couple of others were used in the training.
Oh my, they're under copyright.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think he gave permission for it. I think I saw that on one of the DNA boards.
Okay.
So last week I wrote this blog post. My prompt was, please tell me how I can use autosomal DNA ethnicity and DNA match results in my genealogy research. Okay, so I'm not just DNA, but also tying into research. And so I have.
And this is a picture of you at your computer desk.
Right. A bit younger than and muscular. Yeah. Having dreams about DNA. So I asked that of the 5 free tools that I use. ChatGPT gave me the best answers, I thought.
And that was 4.
Yeah, although, it's 4, but free. Yeah. But Perplexity gave me references, and Copilot gave me references. So I've looked at those 2. So I just posted the answer here. So it's quite a bit there. I put the link in the chat, and so it gives you information based on what it has been trained upon. But this is pretty good. And then I like ChatGPT because they give you additional questions. Would you like to know more about this, or that type of thing? And so I've actually asked it more questions about how do I use DNA to solve problems. So a lot of information.
Yeah, this is still ChatGPT 4 right now that I'm looking at.
If you were starting with DNA, in genealogy,
this
is a place to get information without buying a book. Now, how hard it is, I haven't found anything wrong with this yet. Okay. But I trusted that they're using books from recognized experts. So,
this is good for helping us who are a bit perplexed by how to reconcile our paper trail research that we're pretty good at this point with the ethnicity estimates and our DNA matches. When sometimes, like Cousin Russ's ancestry showed that that 2 roads diverged in the woods, kind of thing. Quote Robert Frost. Interesting. So you're saying, having looked at all this, the analysis, the identifying common ancestors, building a hypothesis to dealing with triangulation, using the shared matches, oh my gosh, that it would help you confirm existing research and how to collaborate. Wow, You haven't found any mistakes in this response, so it's been well tutored, is what you're telling us.
Yep.
Okay.
You have to make that judgment, though. Does it know what it's telling me? It doesn't know. Do I know that it's right? With transcriptions, you're not always sure that they've done it right.
Mm-hmm.
But with something like this that gives you a lot of information that seems reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
this is a pretty good start out.
Well, that's pretty darn good. I'm amazed. Now, of these several tools that you use, I prefer Perplexity. It has a component for ChatGPT 4. I pay for it for Perplexity and the ChatGPT 4 because of the classes I took this spring and summer. I have never used Microsoft's Copilot, but I am intrigued by it because you've been using it. And then Cloud, I've used just sporadically because of assignments in my my institute and my 9-week course on DNA. So you got two people here that have some AI experience. And folks, the key is, as Randy stated, we need to evaluate if the responses we're getting are accurate. We still need to have the human brain evaluate.
Yeah.
Interessante. Okay, there's another DNA topic. Let me pull it up. And this is by Leah LaPearl Larkin, who is explaining to us how to use DNA Painter's shared centimorgan. It explains what this shared centimorgan diagram is all about. I know it's fuzzy on my screen. If you are getting into DNA research and want to know, gee, 20 centimorgan sounds like a lot. Well, not really. It might be a half cousin twice removed, something like that. How are people arriving at those kind of conclusions? This is a pretty good overview of the shared centimorgan tool that Blaine Bettinger created in DNA Painter. And these are two very useful tools for analysis. Okay. So I want you to know about that. Did we give them that link? Thank you, whoever shared it. I appreciate it. It's always good to have opinions from experts who spend even more time than we do on things. Okay, next on the doc. This is something that, oh, dang, I forgot the link. Let's see. If someone could go to your Myrtle's Facebook group and pull the link about, gosh, I didn't put the link in there, about the U.S. alien registration. Maybe I have it on last week's. Yeah, here it is. Laura Diamond's post. This, to me, is absolutely amazing. I had no idea that there was this record set. Here in the United States, there was an alien registration form that needed to be filled out. And it was relative to the Alien Registration Act of 1940. And so what Laura is having, normally she talks to us about Jewish genealogy, but she ran across this. She recently ordered several, and this is what they look like. And we're looking at most of it. Can I zoom in anymore? I don't think so. We'll find out. Yes, I can. So there are people who avoided filling this out. Um, and I don't know why, because the gentleman whose father was the one that failed to, he wouldn't let the Census Bureau document him. He did not file an alien registration form. I don't understand that, but it was a reality. You get 5'5", weighs 210 pounds, gray hair and gray eyes. First arrived at Castle Gardens in 1911. You know, that's pretty cool. And then this is the place I was born, in Kiev, Russia at the time, and I'm a citizen. I don't know how to say the name of that city. This is just the sort of information you might like to gather on an ancestor. Um, and so anyone who is not a naturalized citizen or a native born citizen of the United States had to complete this, except for a few people like my friend's dad. And they just sent the USCIS, which used to be the Immigration and Naturalization Service, just transferred the custody of these to the National Archive. So you can get them very quickly. NARA is very accustomed, the National Archives is very accustomed to fulfillment of requests for records. They are in digital, but not in digital format. So keep that in mind. Yeah, you're right, Frank. Arrival date and the name can get handy to find ships manifests. And
Was this just for people that were in the US in 1940, not for people that came in after that?
no, it continued. It continued.
All right.
I don't know the scope of the collection. Let's see if it says anything in her post. She explained the whole process. Let's go find some more details. Let me give you this link, guys, that explains more. It wasn't just 1940.
So we're quite a lot of people that were quite a lot of women that came over in post World War II, because one of my aunts did, and I just thought, yeah, it might give you a bit more. I know I have got information about what ships she sailed on and that sort of thing, but
here's your form. Here's your answer to your question, and it's all relative to that World War II and World War I stuff. I mean, 1940 is quite late, but 1940 through March 1944, when they closed this.
So that wouldn't have got people post World War II. It would have got people during the war.
During the war, which was pretty darn important. They were concerned about enemy combatants as residents after World War I. If you read the transcripts of what was going on in Congress, there was that paranoia. And what we're talking about are the AR2s, not the A files. The AR2s are just for this short time period. And as the National Archives explains, that yes, they continued the alien registration after that cutoff on March 31st. They used a different form. And I don't know that we have access to that at all. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Next on the docket.
Canada.
Okay. All right. So, Randy, we have something going on with Canadian probate and homestead. Well, that sounds interesting, the homestead part. Because I don't know everything about land records. Is this relative to the search we did? Oh, no.
Not yet, but it could be. So John Reed and Ken McKinley, who are excellent Canadian genealogists that have blogs and write a lot about records and access. So they wrote blog posts this last week. And so I learned from that the Canada probate records and Canada homestead records, certain years, were added to the Family Search full text search feature. Now, this is the first time we've had a searchable database for either set of records. You had to use microfilms, usually at the Family History Center, to find them. So this is really good news, but there's a couple of drawbacks. One is that
It's okay. I'm there.
One is that the Family Search digital microfilm don't provide access to all of the records on digital microfilm, only the ones that are available, at home,
Mm-hmm.
and not the ones with a key over them like we showed before.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of typos in that paragraph.
It's okay.
And my fingers can't spell anymore.
This is
But on the other hand,
okay. I understand. I can read typos perfectly.
but it's a lot of new records that can be found by searching by name, place, date, etc. on full text search. So I wanted to find records for my third great grandfather, Abraham Kemp, and I didn't find any.
Mm-hmm.
But searching for Abraham led me to records for James Abraham Kemp, who was my second great grandfather. And these records seem to start at 1868 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So Abraham was still living, but he didn't have land records in the time frame. So I ended up all day or all morning on Friday capturing. There were 87 matches when I put in James plus Kemp plus Norfolk plus Ontario, because I knew where he lived in 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. Died in 1902. I also found his probate record that I had seen at the Family Search Library before. So 87 records. I captured 26 images of those records. And so I've started transcribing. I transcribed the first one the earliest date one. I did that this morning and posted it this morning. But it was a gold mine. It was a genealogy gold mine of records. And it's only because we have a search capability that we can find them easily. You can find these in the Norfolk County deed records on Family Search, but you got to search through thousands of pages to find something.
Mm-hmm.
Although this says 1876 to 1880, the one I posted today was the same years essentially, but it was written in 1873, and so it's not always what the headline says. You get lucky sometimes.
Excellent.
So you can download the whole thing here and get not only the image, but also the transcription and the source citation and a link to it, all in one PDF document. Okay, usually 3-page PDF document to get this. And so I rename it to what I found so I can find it again. I have the link, I can find it again. And so it's opened up these records to all of us, as long as they're not restricted.
Sounds like a plan. It really does. The fact that more and more records are being summarized or transcribed directly at Family Search, the more they're using that, the easier it is. Are you finding, though, that you're having to make a lot of corrections to the transcript, or are they pretty right on?
For the one I did this morning, about 10% of the words are not correct. Spelling, reading text, handwritten text is hard.
Very.
10% maybe over. I don't know. Maybe it's only 5. But but it saved me probably an hour. It took me an hour. It would have taken me an hour and a half to transcribe essentially 2 full pages of handwritten text line by line. And I was able to compare the transcription to the actual record in about half an hour. So it saved me an hour.
Saved you an hour. And an hour here and an hour there mounts up. It's
You
pretty
can find more records that way. Yeah.
You bet. I love it. Okay, we're going to switch to another topic. Have you ever heard, those of you who are doing U.S. research, of this women's registration that took place in April through May, very short time period, known as, let me pull this up, the World War I Women's Registration Card Collection? I follow Sherry Hudson Passey's Gen Friends, and I heard about this. I've never heard of this before, this collection. But her guest was Amber Oldenburg, who spoke about this, here's the name of it, National Women's Committee Registration Cards. And the kinds of things that were asked for are described in this very informative podcast. Now, podcast means there's no visual, but they asked questions like, could the person drive? Could the woman drive? Was she a nurse? Different things. Now, driving came into place with, we need to get farm produce to market, etc. Because the men had gone off to war and they're trying to figure out who could do what jobs in a community. And I'm very curious to now dive into this record set. I just barely watched this yesterday afternoon, or listened to it, and I haven't studied it yet. Somebody give the link. Let's see if we've got that. The women's registration. If you could copy that. Oh, I've got it right here. Yeah, because this may be very useful to those of us who during this time period in U.S. history, we may be able to find something about helping the help that our ancestresses, female, rendered or were willing to render during that World War I time period. Now I'm thinking my grandmother Myrtle might be listed in such a card. Not every state did it. And some of them have not come to light or have only recently come to light, whereas they had thought the state didn't do it. Washington was a state then. So I'm going to look and see if my grandmother was listed. She was a nurse. I know she was active during World War II, giving inoculations right at the wharf, the Seattle waterfront, before the boys got on the ship to participate in the Pacific Theater during World War II. But she was old enough in 1917. I don't know. I do not know. We shall find out. She wasn't in Seattle in 1917. Took another 9 years before they were up here. But Utah maybe had these records. I don't know. I want to hear from you if it has helped you to see that record collection and study. One more thing for you to look at, Randy. It's all easy. So people have been asking, just a minute, I'm having fun with my computer here. People have been asking, including my panelists, is it about time you're taking a break yet? Nope, I'm not taking a break yet. Um, we're going through the 15th of September, 16th of September. So we have 2 more weeks in September when Mondays with Myrt will be held, same time, same place. And then we will take a break. The one thing I've really enjoyed, folks, is being able to take a break. And I can no longer, with everything going on, remodeling and getting older and all that, doing 4 or 5 study groups and institutes in one week, that, 3 webinars a week, that was a bit much. But I'm really excited to do Mondays with Myrt and to pull these conversations together so we can find out what record sets we might be unaware of at this point and could use in the future. I appreciate Frank and Randy, Lee, Ellen, Hillary, and Sherry over on the YouTube side, and also each of you who have attended live, because the interactivity is really important. We want to know what concerns you and what you're thinking about as well. Thank you, Randy, for putting the links from our Google Sheet, which is what we use to keep our show docket in, and putting them over on the YouTube side. I appreciate that. And so there's really nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.